Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. We're going to go ahead and give it just about 30, 45 seconds, let everybody have the chance to log in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. All right, I am seeing the numbers taper off, so I'm going to go ahead and get this meeting started. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Saad Amir. I work in MSD Public Affairs, and I'll be helping facilitate the conversation. We're here to discuss the Larimore Storm Sewer project. One of the things that I want to point out before we get into the actual presentation is that project number there, 11530. Anytime you have any questions about this, we're going to show you some contact information for your points of contact. Please make sure you write down or take note of that number. That's the project number, and that's the easiest way for you to get to the answer that you need to get to by giving us that project number. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to do is talk about today's roadmap, just to make sure everybody's on the same page of how we're going to structure today's presentation. The very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about the technology that we're using today, just to make sure we're all on the same page and we know how to engage with each other. I'll also go over some quick ground rules, just to make sure we're being cognizant of everybody's time. And then I'll go into a brief description of MSD and who we are, what we do, and then we'll move it over to the actual project team and talk about the project specifics. There's a couple of questions that we always include in our frequently asked questions section, some questions that have been sent into us. That way we can just address those right away. And then we will end the conversation with a Q&A at the end. And Paul, I did see your chat. My name is Saad Amir. It should be on my screen as well, on my video screen. All righty, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so you all must have realized by now you're in what's called listen and view mode. And what that means is that we can hear you, or you can hear us, and you can see us, but we cannot hear you or see you. Now, that does not mean we don't want to hear from you, and there are different ways to engage with us, and I'm going to talk about the way that we kind of focus on here. So if you're on a computer or a smartphone, which I think everybody is, if you wiggle your mouse or tap on your screen, you'll see a menu bar appear, and one of the menu bar options is a button that says Q&A. If you tap or click on that Q&A button, you'll see a text box appear, and you can go ahead and type in your questions from there. Now, I did mention that there's a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, but that doesn't mean you have to wait until the end of the session to ask your question. At any point throughout the process, if you have a question, go ahead and hit the Q&A button and type in your question, and we'll respond accordingly. A couple of notes on the Q&A button. If you will be able to see everyone else's questions. So if you see a question on there that you also want to see answered, you'll see a thumbs up button underneath the question. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, and that lets us know that more than one person wants that question answered, and that lets us prioritize questions in the Q&A. Some general rules about the Q&A. So we are here to talk about Larimore, the Storm Sewer project, and just in the interest of everyone's time, we'll only be taking questions live that have to do with the project. So if you do have questions about MSD's other services, billing, things like that, feel free to put them into the Q&A box. I will respond to you to let you know that we have recorded your question, and we have your information from when you signed up, when you registered for the meeting, and I'll be forwarding those to the correct people. Similarly, if you have a question about how this project affects specifically your property, we also will not be addressing those live, just in the interest of everyone's time. But please feel free to type in those questions into the Q&A. I'll let you know that we have recorded your question, and I'll pass it on to the project team to deal with it with a follow-up on one-on-one. All right, I think that's all the technology stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to an overview over MSD. I'm not going to read through all of this, but just a couple of points that I wanted to point out. Number one, MSD is a government utility. And so we are a provision of the state constitution. And we are governed by a 6-member board of trustees, 3 that are appointed by the county executive and 3 that are appointed by the mayor of St. Louis. A couple of other things on here, you see some of the square mile, the amount of customers we serve, the thousands of miles of sewer. All of that leads us to be the fourth largest sewer system in the United States, which really does drive the cost of our program. The other big thing that I want to mention on here is the graphic at the bottom, 2 utilities in 1. So MSD deals with 2 utilities, wastewater and stormwater. Wastewater is the water that comes from your dishwasher, your sinks, your toilets, your bathtubs. All of that is conveyed into an MSD main, which then goes to one of our 7 treatment plants, where it is then cleaned and released into the environment. The other utility that we handle is stormwater. Stormwater is exactly what it sounds like, water that falls from storms, goes down curbs and into an inlet, and then is released into the environment. So it enters our storm system and then is released into the environment. The reason why I want to mention those is because today we are specifically talking about the stormwater system. The Larimore project will deal with the stormwater system and not the wastewater side. And when we talk to the project team, sometimes you might hear us refer to it as the sanitary system as opposed to the wastewater system. Means the same thing. Another point on those is that the revenue streams for each of those utility services cannot be crossed. So the money we raise for wastewater cannot be spent on stormwater, and the money we raise for stormwater cannot be spent on wastewater. So that's the general overview for MSD. Since we have kind of a good basis of understanding of what we do and who we are, let's go ahead and talk about the project we're here to talk about tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and let the MSD project manager, Jennifer Gerwitz, go ahead and introduce herself and her team, and we'll take it from there.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Gerwitz, and I'll be your main point of contact for this project at MSD. You might also see Jennifer Welsh listed as a panelist, and she's the MSD team leader.
Thank you. And Josiah, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Josiah Holst, and I am the project manager for HR Green. We are the design consultant working for MSD, so I'll be the main point of contact from the design side of things. And with me, or you may see also the name Steve Stumpf on the call. He's one of the project designers and project engineers for this project as well.
Thank you very much, Josiah. So I will go ahead and advance now, and we'll talk about specifics for the project. So Josiah, if you wouldn't mind, can we talk about just kind of generally where this project came from and why we're doing it?
Sure. This project originated from customer complaints. MSD receives complaints throughout their service area, and they receive complaints in this project area related to street and yard flooding or ponding, primarily along the Larimore Road corridor.
Thank you very much. And what is the goal for this project specifically?
Yeah, so the goal is to reduce the flooding and the ponding that has been occurring for years. And so to do that, the area is very flat. It ponds water. And really, there's no infrastructure system for stormwater out in this area. So this project goal is to install a storm sewer system with inlets to collect and convey that stormwater to reduce that flooding that occurs. Currently, the stormwater system consists primarily of ditches, open ditches, and driveway culverts. And so this project will, for the most part, eliminate most of those driveway culverts along the Larimore Road corridor, so they will no longer be necessary.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Anything else you'd like to add on this side?
No, I don't think so.
All right, perfect. Okay, now we'll talk about the actual project map and how we'll be advancing throughout the project. Josiah, can you give like kind of this from the beginning to the end, how we'll be progressing throughout this?
Sure. So the project map that you're looking at, what you're seeing in the red outline is essentially the project limits. So the project extends from the Larimore Park entrance on the left side of the page. That's sort of the upper portion of the project. And then the stormwater drains currently down to the right to Lakeview Avenue, where the stormwater is released into an existing drainage ditch right in that location where the mouse cursor is.
Perfect. And where would we begin construction on this project?
Yeah, so typically the construction would start at the downstream end. So on the right-hand side of the page, we would start, and the storm sewer would connect into the drainage channel on the right side, and then they would start installing the storm sewer upstream to the left of the screen. To the south.
Perfect. Thank you. And just generally, do you have any idea when construction would begin on this project?
Yeah, so right now, the tentative schedule is for construction to begin in winter of 22 or early 23.
And the estimated duration? I know we'll go over this in a second too, but.
Sure. Yeah, we've estimated that this project could take up to 18 months to build.
All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the project specs, some of the project facts. Can you go over a little bit about the details here, how much pipe we're putting in, how deep we'll be digging, things like that?
Sure. So the red limits that we just showed, what's going to happen within those red limits is installing nearly a mile of pipe, over 4,000 feet of pipe. And again, this is storm sewer pipe. There's really not storm sewers that exist out there today. So this is essentially kind of a new infrastructure system for that corridor. Those pipes will be installed underground from depths of 4 feet on the upper end to getting down to as deep as 13 feet on the lower end of the project. The sizes of the pipes range in diameter from 12 inches to 54 inches. And the project cost is about $2.5 million to invest in the infrastructure needed in this corridor.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. So you talked a little bit about how much we'll be putting in, how much pipe we'll be putting in, and how much money is being spent. Can you talk a little bit about exactly how we're going to construct the project?
Yeah. So again, it's an underground utility project. So there will be pipes that will be installed, and to do that, they will use open cut construction, open cut trenches. So you'll be seeing excavators and mini excavators and backhoes. That's what will be used to dig those trenches, to put the pipe in the trenches at that 4 foot to 13 foot depth. Those trenches would then be backfilled up to the surface and restored to the condition that they are now or better. And also some of the equipment, dump trucks to haul in rock that is used to backfill these trenches. There'll be other smaller equipment such as skid steers. There will be a little bit of tree removal in a couple of spots. So there may be some wood chipping machines in those areas. There will be a few areas where we'll need to cross driveways and Larimore roads. So there will be some pavement restoration. So those are just a few examples of some of the equipment.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And when we say open cut, we're talking about digging through the surface of the ground, through that the depth that we talked about earlier, leaving those trenches so that we can install the pipe.
Correct.
Perfect. And all of this equipment that we're seeing, it seems like a pretty heavy construction job. So folks should be pretty aware that there will be some sort of effect, noise, things like that with the equipment that's going to be going through, the equipment and materials that are going to be going through.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, the construction could be a little bit messy, a little bit noisy, but the project should be contained for the most part within the limits that we showed you there.
Perfect. Thank you, Josiah. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about what residents can expect. So as of right now, I believe we are currently in the process of acquiring easements. Is that correct?
Yeah, the design plans are complete, and MSD is beginning the easement process where they engage property owners that will be directly impacted by the project.
And we did talk about some sort of traffic impact as well, especially since we're going to be on Larimore. Sometimes we'll be going through roads and side streets and things like that. Can you talk a little bit about the traffic impact and how we'll be containing that?
Yeah, so for the most part, most of the work is contained off of the roadways and outside of the roadways, sort of in that existing ditch line that is out there. So for the most part, the construction's off of the roadway. So I don't anticipate that there will be long-term roadway closures. However, again, there are some driveway crossings, so there'll be temporary disruptions to some driveways. There are some roadway crossings, so there'll be temporary, detours potentially, or just road, narrowed down to maybe say one lane of traffic at a time. The contractor will be responsible for traffic control, for maintaining traffic. The contractor will also be responsible for providing access to driveways at the end of every business or working day. So they, if they're installing a pipe across your driveway a particular day, there may be some temporary disruption, but by the end of the day, they will be responsible to provide you access to the driveway. And if there's special cases or special requests, contractors and MSD certainly wants to accommodate those to the extent practical.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point as well to bring up. Once this project moves from design into construction, then a contractor will be selected, and then they will have more specific plans, more specific traffic control measures, and more information at that point. Is that right?
Correct.
And just talk a little, I want to make a point of it too. When we talk about, access issues to driveways, some sort of trenches being there or having to cross a driveway, we're really only talking about during working hours, right?
Correct. Yeah. During construction, to install a pipe across the driveway, they need to dig a trench across the driveway. So there may be a short period of time where that driveway is inaccessible, but by the end of the working day, they would, even if they're not finished with the pipe work, they would need to provide either backfill up to the surface so you can drive over the area where they're working, or provide a steel plate, some safe way for you to be able to access your driveway and get back into your home.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I wanted to make sure to reiterate that Josiah pointed out. If there are special cases where you do need that immediate access, we do want to hear about those, and we want to work with you as much as possible. So letting us know about those beforehand will make the process go a little bit smoother. All right, Josiah, anything else we want to mention for how what residents can expect for this project?
I don't think so.
All right, perfect. Okay, and then this is just a representation of what open cut construction looks like before, during, and after a project. So obviously this is not exactly what it's going to look like for your guys' project, for this project, but it shows you kind of the conditions of what it looks like before, and you can kind of use the fire hydrant as a point of reference. During, this is the trenches that we're talking about and fencing around those trenches, and then afterwards what restoration will look like as well. So we do follow for restoration. We'll talk about this a little bit more specifically, but for MSD policy, it has to be according to local requirements, and MSD also has its own requirements for restoration as well. All right, talking about the tentative construction schedule. So we did mention a couple of these things before, but we want to make sure we lay these out. Before we get into this, I do want to make a point of mentioning that this is tentative. Obviously, things happen, like a global health pandemic that could delay some things. Obviously, weather delays some things. So this is tentative, and this is our best estimate of how long it would take. But let's go through this. So right now we're going through the design completion, or the design completion already occurred in May. And as of this point, we're working on easement acquisition. So Josiah, these residents can expect that they would be being reached out to if their property needs to be accessed to construct the project.
Correct. Yes, MSD has a team of folks that will be reaching out to property owners that are directly impacted, and that will occur between now and like you show here, May 22.
Perfect. And after the easement acquisition process is complete, the estimated start date at this point, as Josiah mentioned, is winter 2022 or 2023. So late 2022 or the beginning of 2023. And as we mentioned earlier, the estimated duration for the length of the project is about 18 months. Right. Moving on to the frequently asked questions. So Josiah, I'll just go ahead and take these. You can answer them how you see fit. So when talking about residents having construction on their property, how would they be able to figure out if construction is going to be occurring on their property?
Yeah, so I mean, the map that we showed earlier is accessible on the website link that the district has set up for this project. So you can certainly take a closer look at that map on your own, but also you can reach out directly to myself or Jennifer Gerwitz with the district, and we'd be happy to talk about how the project impacts your property, if at all.
Perfect, thank you. And will this project address issues associated with the wastewater system?
No, it will not. So as you mentioned, the stormwater side of things is separate from wastewater. So we are strictly addressing stormwater, the water that ponds on the surface of the land, and that's what we're trying to reduce. So for instance, things such as basement backups that may be occurring in the area from the sanitary system or the wastewater system, that is not being addressed with this project.
Perfect, thank you. And then in terms of vegetation, fences, mailboxes, how will those be affected by construction?
Right, so there could be some temporary disturbance of these features, but MSD has strict restoration requirements on the contractor, so that vegetation that's disturbed, fences that are disturbed, mailboxes, et cetera, that are disturbed, while they may need to be impacted slightly during construction, The restoration requirements will be there for the contractor to restore those features to the condition that they are today or better. So for instance, you know, some of the projects is encroaching on some front yards along the edge of the roadway. Of course, the grass and the sod that exists out there is going to be torn up. MSD would restore that with sod, new sod after the project is over, the contractor would.
Perfect. And one thing I want to mention that Jennifer put on here as well, the plans for this project are on the website that Josiah mentioned. The link will be at the end of this presentation, but it's just msdprojectclear.org/Larimore. And there you can see specifically what properties and addresses and things like that on there. All right. Moving on to the questions portion of the presentation. So as of this point, we are done with the informational side of the presentation, and we'll be taking questions at this point. Just as a reminder on how to do that, if you wiggle your mouse, you'll see the Q&A button. If you tap or click on that, you can go ahead and put your questions in there. So I'll give it a second for everybody to do that. I know we already have one from Shantae on here. How are stormwater projects determined by MSD? And Jennifer, I think I will probably throw this one to you.
So MSD keeps a variety of databases where they track calls that come in from homeowners or property owners for any issues they are having. And there are also calls where we go out to fix or maintain structures that we have. All of those items are tracked. So when I believe they see, you know, several gathering in one area, they start looking into that as a possible project that needs to be done. And then they investigate to see if a project in that area would be needed or is substantiated by what they see in the field.
Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, from Paul. Not sure if County Department of Transportation is on the call, but have we been in contact with the county regarding issues of transportation and county roads and things like that?
Yeah, I can answer that one. We have been, the project plans have been submitted to the county Department of Transportation, and they've gone through a couple of rounds of review and back and forth with us and the design team, and we've addressed their comments. So they're aware of the project. We've been coordinating with them and the Parks Department at the county as well on this project, all through the process from day one.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Paul, I don't believe anybody from County Transportation is on the call. Thanks, Paul. All right, so I don't see any more active questions. We're going to give it a couple more seconds to see if anybody has any. A couple of things I want to mention on here for housekeeping stuff. As you see, you do see Jennifer and Josiah's contact information on here. Of course, you are more than welcome to reach out to them with more specific questions, and also general questions, any questions you have about the project as well. I did mention that there's more information on our website, msdprojectclear.org. All you'll need to do is go to msdprojectclear.org/Larimore, and you'll see more information on this project, some project plans. And then after this meeting, we'll also be posting a recording of this presentation on there as well. So if any of your neighbors were not able to get to this meeting, please direct them to the website and they'll be able to see the presentation. Paul is asking if there is any federal funding in this. And Jennifer, I don't believe that any of this money is coming from the Fed, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Sorry, no, it is not.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. I believe ratepayers pay for all of this, but yes. All right, we'll give it just another couple seconds, see if anybody has any additional questions. And also this presentation, the slides will also be on the webpage as well after this meeting. All right, I am not seeing any more questions. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our project team and our team of experts for answering all of these questions and providing all of this information. Oh, I did see one more. Thanks, Paul. Paul said, nice presentation, thanks. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to the contact information you see on screen. And we hope you have a great rest of your night. Thanks, everybody.